Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Ashley and today we're going to be doing my September update for the Tiny Pans Project Pan. First of all, September is a huge month for me. I'll be very honest. I'm kind of in shock over the fact that it's September, but my son turns 4 this month. My husband turns 40 this month. My marriage turns 6 this month. September is a big month for me, and I'm super excited. But today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be updating my Tiny Pans Project Pan. This is a project that I can officially now say is in collaboration with the PANtastic Ladies. I finally did it and I joined. Why it took me so long, I have no idea, but I'm now officially a PANtastic Lady. Anyway, so this is the Pan That palette for 2021 from the PANtastic Ladies, and what we're doing is we are choosing a palette that is tiny, whether it be the pans themselves are tiny like mine, or it is the smallest pan in your palette, the smallest palette in your collection by weight, whatever the case may be, that is what we're doing. And I chose this tiny palette from Sleek Cosmetics with the smallest eyeshadow pans I think I've ever seen. And before I show you what my palette is looking like this month, let me go ahead and pop up a picture of what it looked like last month and what it's looking like now. Look at those changes. Look at those changes. So I'm feeling really great. I'll be honest, as I mentioned probably in every single update, Pan That palette has historically been my weakest panning project, I guess. I have never been very good at it, but this year, this project has turned it all around for me. I feel like I can do anything. So let's talk about the progress that I have made. As always, I will put up the picture from this month as well as the picture from last month, just so that you can see those changes, and we'll talk about how many times I used each of these eyeshadows. So the very first eyeshadow in the palette, you'll notice I hit side pan on. Oh, that feels so good. And it's a significant amount of side pan. So that is an eyeshadow that I used an additional 8 times to get to that point. So that is looking outstanding. Because that's a shadow that I use just as basically an inner corner highlight or a brow bow highlight, it's one that we're just gonna be working and chipping away at slowly. So it's probably gonna be around with us for a good bit longer. I'm actually considering, and I wouldn't do it anytime soon, but let me know what you think down in the comments below. Because the first shade in the palette and the 5th shade in the palette, they are so stinking similar. One has a slightly pink undertone, the other has a slightly golden undertone, but they serve the same purpose for me, and on the eye, they look pretty much indistinguishable in the way that I use them. So a part of me is thinking that I might want to franken them together. What do you think? Is that cheating? I kind of feel like it's cheating a little bit. I don't know. Let me know what you think, but that's an idea that I am toying with. But used it 8 more times and loving the fact that we have some side pan there. The second shadow in the palette is the only remaining matte in the palette, and I only used that 3 times. It looks like it's this nice dusty purple in the palette, but when I use it, the way that it applies to my eye, it's a deep gray, or I guess a mid-tone gray is a better description. So I use it very sparingly, and it really doesn't fit well with the looks that I'm currently gravitating towards. However, once the weather starts cooling down and I start really going for more of those cooler tone looks, I think that's when it will really start to see its heyday. But I did use it an additional 3 times since our last update, so I did use it, but I don't know that you'll be able to see some change until I put the 2 pictures side by side. I don't really know since I look at it every single day, but I'm thinking you probably won't. The third shade in the palette I did use 4 times. It kind of like the other 2 shimmery shadows, it serves a very similar function for me. It's just a brighter version. So I do think that that's one that will start to get more use again as the weather kind of cools down a little bit. The fourth shade in the palette, I used an additional 4 times. That one I think you'll probably be able to see some change on. When I use that one, I tend to use a fluffy brush and then buff it into my crease or all over my lid or a combination thereof. So I think you'll probably be able to see some change there. I'm hoping that next month I can really expand that pan out quite a bit and maybe hit some side pan. I think that would be really, really cool. The fifth shade in the palette is the one that I was talking about, maybe frankening with the first shade. I used that one 16 times, so we definitely have a much wider pan there, and it works very, very well in the way that I prefer to use it. The sixth shade in the palette I did use 3 times since our last update, so no pan there, and to be honest, I don't even see a super deep dip. It's just a little bit of a dip. So hopefully that's one that will, closer to the end of the year, really start to shine. Where you do see some new pan is in the 7th shade, that gold shade there in the bottom corner. I do have a good bit of pan there. I used that an additional 10 times since our last update, so I'm very happy about that. I'm very happy about that. And I do feel like as we go through September and I'm really wanting those very burnt tones, I think that this will get a lot of use in that regard as well. So very much looking forward to some of those looks. The 8th shadow in this palette, I did use an additional 6 times. I use it very similarly to the way that I use the 4th shadow. It's just a darker version of it. So when I pair those two together, what I like to do is take the 4th shade, buff it all through my crease and usually along my lid as well. I will take the 8th shadow and I will deepen up the outer V, and then take the 7th shadow and brighten up the inside, and I think it makes a really beautiful look, especially since the 4th shade in this palette, even though it looks like it's got kind of a greenness to it in the pan, when it's applied to the eye, it's a very bronzy shade. I mean, it's beautiful. It's very beautiful, but it is a very bronzy shade, so it does work so, so nicely with the gold in this palette, and I've really been enjoying that combination. The 9th and 10th shadows are both completely gone. And then the 11th shadow, which is that kind of lighter gray, I did use that once since our last update. It's a beautiful shadow. I actually really, really like this gray shadow, and I'm excited to start working on it more closer to the end of the year, because the few times that I've used it, I've really loved it every time. So definitely excited about that. And then the final shade is that kind of rusty coppery color, which I did only use once since our last update, but just like I spoke about with that gold shade, I really feel like September and October are gonna be the months for those, and I'm really excited to get back into my burnt. I love burnt shades. I love them so much. So very, very excited about that progress, and I'm feeling really good about it. However, with that said, we have 4 months, September, October, November, December. So 4 full months, depending on when I decide to do my finale. I really need to step up my usage a lot if I'm going to actually clear all of this out, which I would love to do. I've never done that before. I would love to be able to do that. So I really need to hunker down and work on these a lot. It's just difficult since I have overextended myself in a panning capacity, and I have a lot of eyeshadows that I'm working on. So it's been kind of an interesting juggle trying to get everybody used, but I really need to buckle down and make some heavy, heavy progress over the next few months if I'm going to meet that goal. So because I am a crazy person and I like to add new stuff, I have 2 additional products that are going in this project, one of which has been in for quite a while. This is a teeny tiny liquid lipstick from Bobbi Brown, and this is in the shade Smoothie Move. I enjoy using this, but it's really hard to tell where I am because the product in the package doesn't seem to ever shift or move. I don't see any windowing, but when I do use it, I'm having to dip in more than once, so I feel like that's a really good sign. Part of me just wants to bite the bullet and pull the stopper because I want to know how much is in there, but I feel like it is very premature to do that. I have used it 4 additional times since our last update. I actually feel like I've used it more than that. I think I just didn't mark it down because I don't know, like to make my life difficult. I'm not sure. I feel like I've used it more than 4 times since our last update, but those are the only marks that I have on here, so that's what we're gonna go with. But I do really very much enjoy this product, this formula, and this color. But as with the eyeshadows, I'm also panning a whole lot of lip products, so I'm doing my best. The final pan that I have in here is this teeny tiny little bitty powder from Charlotte Tilbury that I want to get used up. And I cleaned that baby out. So I tried to use it for as long as I could as basically just an under eye powder, since the pan was so small and it was hard to get a face brush in there. It was obnoxious trying to set my whole face with it. So I used it primarily as an under eye setting powder until it got too thin to do that. And then I just used it to set my eyeshadow base. So I loved using this powder. It is expensive. I do not need to buy it. I really, really want to buy it. And we'll see what happens during the Sephora sale. I have come to the realization quite recently that I think I'm going to lose my rouge status this year because I really haven't purchased much. When I have made purchases, they have been primarily from Ulta. I think I've only made like 1 or 2, possibly 3 Sephora purchases in the course of the year. So I have a feeling I'm going to lose my Sephora rouge status. And I don't really know how I feel about that. We're trying to change houses, which in this market is just seemingly impossible. We have a meeting with not our realtor, but our former realtor, who's now our current realtor's boss, to look at a build site tomorrow that I have really, really, really high hopes for. So we'll see how that all goes. But I've really kind of been focusing on not doing a ton of extraneous spending. And certainly if we decide to build, we'll probably go over budget, and therefore I'm really gonna have to not spend money. So we'll see. That was a really long way of saying I want this powder, but it's $45 and I really don't need to spend that on powder, but we'll see what happens. That was so rambly. I'm so sorry. It's just what is currently on my mind. I looked through my collection to see if there was anything to bring into its place, because I really liked the idea of pulling in some additional tiny pans because I need to get some of the stuff out of my collection. And I pulled in a primer, but I don't know what I did with it. I pulled it out the other day so that I could do this update, and I don't know what I did with it. So what I'm gonna do is Editing Ashley is gonna pop in a picture of it right here. It is the smallest primer in my collection. I know I'm already working on primers, but I feel like this will be an easy one to get done and dusted. So hopefully in the next update, I'll have that for you as well. If you have stayed through this entire rambly update, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys more than I can ever say. I love you guys so much for all of your love and support that you have shown me over the years. As always, everything that I am panning and everyone that I have mentioned is going to be linked in the description box below, as well as everything that I'm wearing on my face. And if you have not yet subscribed, I hope that you'll consider doing so. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I hope that you're having an amazing day, and I will see you next time. Bye.